What is up, everybody? Welcome to another World Cup preview. Today we are talking about Saudi Arabia to round out Group C. To make sure you don't miss any of the other World Cup previews and to go find the ones I've already done, be sure to hit that subscribe button right here on YouTube. And you can check out all of my written content on Substack, touchlinetalk.substack.com, as well as on Medium. I'm slowly transitioning everything there as well. Saudi Arabia, 6th World Cup appearance. All 6 of those appearances have come since 1994, so a fairly recent entrant into the World Cup, but consistently making it over the past couple of decades. To get to Qatar, Saudi Arabia went into 2 qualifying rounds, topped their group in both of them. That second sort of final group they played in the Asian Football Confederation featured Australia, China, Japan, Oman, and Vietnam. Those were the 5 teams in Saudi Arabia's group. Like I said, Saudi Arabia came out on top, 23 points in 10 games to earn one of the 4 automatic spots given to Asia at this World Cup. Players to watch out for. First name to talk about here, Salim Al-Dawsari. He had 7 goals in qualifying, 3 of them were from the penalty spot. He scored at the 2018 World Cup. He scored in the 2019 Asian Cup. He is one of the focal points of this Saudi Arabian attack, one of the most accomplished players on the team, one of the most dangerous players on the team. Offensively, look for him to be incredibly involved throughout this tournament. Second guy, Fahad Al-Muwallad, 7 goal involvements during World Cup qualifying, 4 goals, 3 assists. Third most total goal involvements, but it's also worth noting he was kind of the only player on this team that was contributing with both goals and assists. You had some players with multiple assists, you had 2 guys with 7 goals, but you didn't have a lot of players with sort of this balance where you're creating and finishing chances. That was what Al-Muwallad was doing for this team. He is also noteworthy because he was the first Saudi Arabian player to see the field in La Liga during the 2017-18 season. He played with Levante to make that little piece of history. Third, final player, wanted to mention briefly here, Yasser Al-Sharani, one of the most established, most consistent performers for this team. He played the most minutes during qualifying. He didn't come off the field at the last World Cup. He's contributing offensively. He is an outside back, primarily on the left side. So this is kind of your staple defender, the one spot Saudi Arabia has locked down. It is Al-Sharani's spot, game in, game out. He's one of the most important players on this team. So yes, the numbers aren't spectacular. It's easy when I'm sort of looking at players to highlight, specifically on teams where I'm not as familiar with them. It's easy to sort of gravitate towards the attacking players and the players that put up numbers during qualifying or put up numbers at the last World Cup. So I try to also balance that out. If there is a defender that really stands out to me based on how important they are, how many minutes they're playing, how relied upon they are for this team, and Yasser Al-Sharani absolutely fits that category, so I wanted to mention him as well. In terms of a breakout star, Firas Al-Buraikan was scoring a goal every 180 minutes, so every 2 games during qualifying. Just turned 22. Helped lead Saudi Arabia to their first U23 Asian Cup title in June. So he's done it at the youth level. He is a regular contributor at the pro level. He's really started to break into this national team. Is he probably going to play game in and game out and be one of the key players on this team in Qatar? Probably not. We'll have to see how this all shakes out, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to the final segment here. But in terms of a guy with loads of potential who is producing at a really young age and could sort of take that step to become a bigger name and sort of launch the next stage of his career, Firas Al-Buraikan, definitely my pick on the Saudi Arabian team. Bottom line, one thing I want to point out here, and what I ultimately settled on for my reason for optimism for this team is sort of the advanced numbers and the story they tell from Saudi Arabia's performance at the 2018 World Cup. They were in a group with Uruguay, Russia, and Egypt. If you remember, that first game against Russia did not go so well. But after that, two very close games. And looking at the data provided by FBref, Football Reference, Saudi Arabia actually finished second in that group in expected goals and expected goals difference. I am not somebody that is going to get obsessed with XG. I do talk about it a lot because I do think it's important. And as a very process-oriented person, I put a good deal of value on it in the sense that, look, if you won the XG battle by 2 goals and you just couldn't put the ball in the net, that tells a very different story than if you created 2 kind of chances and finished with 0.3 XG. Right? The entirety of that story matters. But XG fails to tell you everything. It doesn't necessarily paint an accurate depiction of the game. Especially if, for example, a team scores a goal very early and is then capable of and in a position to just sit back. And then maybe hit the team on a counter for a second goal, and they actually played much better than the XG would suggest. So, this is not to say that Saudi Arabia were definitively the second best team in this group and decided to get and deserved to get out of the group. But it is worth pointing out that from a balance of play perspective and especially a chance creation perspective, they did really well in Russia. And I also want to bring this up because I think a lot of times, and for good reason, the teams, kind of the underdogs or the teams you're not exactly expecting to have good tournaments that may have some success and may surprise you, often do so with the sort of defend for your lives, smash and grab, find a way to score a goal, get dominated in XG, but get that one decisive moment kind of thing. And that's not really the Saudi Arabian team. And also you see some of these less talented teams that go to a World Cup. What is the, or I mean, you can even look at the club level. Teams that get relegated. What is the major issue most of them have, right? It's inability to create good chances and inability to actually put the ball in the net. Saudi Arabia is doing just fine in both of those categories. And they did just fine in a relatively difficult group. Again, Uruguay, Russia, Egypt. You got the home team, you got Uruguay, and you got Mo Salah. So in many ways, this is not your prototypical sort of quote-unquote underdog story or your prototypical dark horse when it comes to a World Cup. Saudi Arabia doesn't really fit that description. Their strength is their attack. They have that creativity. They have some flair, some incredibly technically gifted players. So don't expect this team to kind of sit back and play in a low block and absorb all this pressure and try and hit teams on the counter. They're going to be more ambitious than that. The other thing to note in this conversation is that their joint top goal scorer during qualifying, Salah Al-Shahiri, tore his ACL, unfortunately, and is still working back from that, to the point where he's not, as I'm recording this in the middle of September, not in the picture yet because he's just simply not healthy enough. What role, if any, he plays at this World Cup is still up in the air. There's a chance he's recovered. There's a chance he can play a smaller role as he works himself back. That is all to be determined, but that is a big storyline for this team heading into the World Cup is, do you have Al-Shahiri on the roster? And if Al-Shahiri is on the roster, what is he actually going to be able to give you in Qatar? So that is my reason for optimism, is the creativity and the technical ability this team has. My question, can they settle on a starting 11 and sort of get a group and a preferred 11 heading into this tournament? There were 18 players who started the game at the 2018 World Cup for Saudi Arabia. Just in the group stage because they did not get out of the group stage. So 3 games. That is the same total France had, who won the tournament and played 7 games to get to that title. 4 more games, they ended up starting the same amount of players. Saudi Arabia had 15 players who got between 3 and 10 starts during qualifying. You have this core group of 5 or so guys who are regular starters, and then there's been a lot of turnover and kind of mixing and matching and different players filling in at different times, and there has not been a lot of consistency in that starting 11. It's not necessarily a bad thing, and qualifying is always weird like that because you have injuries, you have guys coming in and out of form. Every team, right, you're not going to be able to field your best, and also just you're playing 2-3 games in a short window. You're not going to field your best 11 every single game. So that's why I wanted to go back to the 2018 World Cup to make this point too. But I am slightly concerned, just a lack of cohesion and this idea of not knowing who is playing what role heading into the World Cup does worry me a little bit. So that's my big question for this team. Ultimately, I do think this team is dangerous. They're going to cause some problems, and like I said, they are not going to sit back and play defense first, try and find a way to steal a goal and steal a game. That's not who they are. I would like their chances much more as a dark horse or kind of a surprise team to make a run at getting out of the group. If they weren't paired with the most informed team in the world, the best striker in the world, and a Mexico team that no matter what finds a way to get out of the group every single time. I don't like this setup for the Saudi Arabian team in terms of their hopes of getting to the knockout stage. On paper, they're one of the weaker teams in the tournament. But like I said, they are dangerous and they're going to score some goals and they're going to do some very entertaining things offensively. They're going to be pretty fun to watch. In another group, I can make a much stronger case about why they have a real shot to get out of that group and get to the knockout, the round of 16. I just don't see it happening here because that means one of these other 3 teams who are arguably 3 of the 16 best teams at the tournament, you have to, A, play all of your games against them, so there are no given points, or points you should even, or, points you should have if you're Saudi Arabia, and you gotta hope that 2 of those 3 teams don't perform well in Qatar, and that you get these results to break your way. It's just asking for a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if Saudi Arabia finds a way to win a game, and maybe ruins somebody's World Cup and sort of decides who does end up getting out of this group. I just don't see Saudi Arabia entering the final game of the group stage in a good position to get to the round of 16. We'll see how it all ends up playing out. That is the Saudi Arabia preview. Again, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you find all of these previews as they continue to come out in the build-up to the World Cup. That's all for now. I'll see you next time.